Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to take some ordinary Dollar Tree items and create some high-end Easter spring decor using the Cricut Maker 3. I would like to thank Cricut for sponsoring today's video. I hope you enjoy today's video and get tons of inspiration and maybe learn something new along the way. Did you know that the Cricut Maker 3 can cut over hundreds of different materials? Using just a few of those materials, I'm going to show you just how fun and easy it is to create customized home decor on a budget for your home. So let's go ahead and get started on our first project. For this project, I am using one of Dollar Tree's Valentine's signs. I'm going to remove the hanger as well as the sticker on the back, and then take a piece of sandpaper to remove all of that glue residue. This sign measures 13 1/8 of an inch across and 8 1/8 of an inch from top to bottom. I'm going to give this 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color Celery and allow that celery paint to dry before taking some white chalk paint and a sponge brush to go around the outside edging, as well as create a line on the front around this entire sign. Now you can make your line as thin or as thick as you want. This just makes it an easier application to get that paint on the front of the sign. Once that paint dries, I want to cover the back, and I'm going to use some craft paper and just use a size large enough to go around it. I will cut the excess off in just a minute. I'm going to attach that using a glue stick, and I'm just going to attach that on one side, press it down nice and firm, especially those outside edges, and then I could turn this around and get the other side in the exact same way. Now, once my glue sets, I can flip this over. I'm going to set my sign down on a cutting board and use a utility knife, or you can use a craft knife, and go around those outside edges very carefully to trim all of this excess craft paper off. Now you have a nice clean backing for your sign. I just took my Cricut tool and poked through the holes because I do want to add a hanger back on here, and I'm going to add it in the exact same spot that the holes already were. I'm going to give mine a coat of matte Mod Podge because I plan on putting this on my covered porch, so I want to protect it from the elements. Now let's hop over to Cricut Design Space. Now I have already created this. I have used the fonts Close to My Heart Art Philosophy for the flower market and the seeds, stems, and blooms. And then I have used Arab Brushstroke Standard Regular for the Open Daily. And the picture of the truck with the flowers, that was purchased from Cricut Access. If you have a subscription, you can just type in truck with flowers. Now I've resized this to make it 10.5 by 7. And now I can go over and continue. I'm going to be printing this out without a mat because I am using some smart vinyl. And we can go ahead and click continue. Here I will select my material, which is smart vinyl, and go ahead and load this into the Cricut Maker 3. It will go ahead and cut that for me. Because I have cut this on white vinyl, which tends to be very hard to see when you're weeding, I am using the Cricut LED Bright Pad. It has 3 different settings, and it makes it so much easier to be able to see what you're weeding, especially with a light colored vinyl, as well as a decal that is very detailed. This just makes the job so much easier. Now that I have this weeded, I can go ahead and add my transfer tape on top and then burnish that down all the way across to make sure all of my pieces are going to stay to my transfer tape. Now I like to flip mine over and pull the backing off and make sure that all my pieces have stayed onto the transfer tape, and now we can apply it to the sign. Again, you're just going to put that transfer tape down, burnish over top of it, and when you remove the transfer tape, pull it at an angle and just take your time to make sure all of those detailed pieces stay onto the sign. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a hanger using some twine. I'm just going to feed each end into the back part of the sign and then double knot it in the front, cut that excess off, and now you have a beautiful flower market sign. Like I said, I'm going to put this on my covered porch. And you guys, I love how this project turned out, and I really hope that you enjoyed it as well. For this project, we're using one of Dollar Tree's glass cutting boards. I'm going to remove that plastic wrapping and then take my Cricut spatula and very carefully remove those silicone pieces on the bottom. Then use some rubbing alcohol and a cotton swab. Thoroughly clean this, especially where those silicone pieces were, and allow that to dry. Now we're going to jump on over to Cricut Design Space. For this, I am using I'm just going to type in bunny with flowers, and if you have a Cricut Access subscription, you have access to over 200,000 images and over 700 fonts, so you can get really creative. So I found this really beautiful bunny, and I knew this was the perfect one for my project. So I added it to my canvas, and now I'm going to resize it to about 6.25 by 5.75. And I'm going to click Make It. For this one, again, I'm using some smart vinyl, so I don't need this on a mat. But I do want to make sure that I mirror this image because I'm going to be placing this on the back side of our cutting board, and you're going to be seeing it from the front side. So now we can select our materials. It's going to tell you exactly what you need in your Cricut Maker 3. Load this into your machine and let the Cricut do its thing. Once you press that play button, it's going to cut it out perfectly. And then once it's finished, we can click unload, and now we can take it and weed it. Again, I'm setting this on that LED bright pad. Now, if you recreate this project, make sure that you are using a vinyl that is the same color on both sides. Because when we apply this, you're actually going to be seeing the back side of the vinyl on top of the cutting board. If that makes sense, it'll make more sense in just a little bit when we apply it. So now that we have applied it to our transfer tape, we can apply it to the back side of the cutting board. We're going to burnish that down just like we did in the previous project. Carefully remove that transfer tape. See, this is the top part of the vinyl, but it's actually the back part of our cutting board. Now, I do recommend, if you are going to be submerging this in water, to add some dishwasher safe Mod Podge to the side with the vinyl. I'm actually going to be using mine as a spoon rest, so I'm not going to apply this to the Mod Podge because I'm only going to be putting the spoons or spatulas on the top part of the cutting board, not the part where the vinyl is. Now we can reattach those silicone pieces, which are still sticky. You can just push those back on and they will stay. And this is how it turned out. I think this is so adorable. I love it for spring and Easter, and it's just makes my eyes happy. I hope you guys enjoy this project. Project number 3, we're using this 6x8 canvas from Dollar Tree. I'm going to separate the canvas from the frame using my Arrow staple puller. This thing comes in so handy and really makes it easy work to remove those staples. I have that listed in my Amazon store in my description box below if you are interested in that. Using antique wax made by Waverly, I'm going to apply this to the frame with a brush and then take a wet baby wipe to blend everything in and remove the excess. While that's drying, I'm going to go over to Cricut Design Space. I have already pulled up this image from Cricut Access. I'm going to resize it. I'm changing the operation from cut to pin or draw, and then I will select the color for each one of these pieces to this design. I'm going to be using the Infusible ink markers, so when you click on the right hand side, you can click part of the design, then you're going to want to go over to the color and change that, but make sure that you change it from fine point to marker 1 millimeter and then choose your color. So I originally went in here and chose all the colors that I wanted to use for this, which I will have all those colors listed in my description box below if you are interested in recreating this project. But I failed to change each one of them from pen to marker. So once I had all my colors set out, I did have to go back and change each one of those over to the 1 millimeter marker. It's going to give you a nice dark outline. Once you have all of your colors chosen, I decided to go ahead and add some text. I am using the font DTC Cottage Style and just typed out Hello Spring. I'm going to create a little bit of a curve on this, so I lined it up over top of the image, and then you can click on curve. You can make it go upwards or downwards, as much of a curve or as little of a curve as you like. I'm going to resize that, and then I want to change that over to pen as well, or draw, and then select the marker and the color. Then I'm going to group them together so that I can make sure everything is lined up. And then I didn't like how much curve was on there, so I went back after I ungrouped it and changed the curve on that. I made sure to regroup it again, make sure everything is lined up. And it ended up being 6 by 4.75 is the size that I ended up going with. Once you have everything to the size you want and you have it grouped together, make sure you click attach so everything will print out together. I am going to be using a mat for this. I'm using some copy paper to print this out on. Because this is infusible ink markers, make sure you mirror your image because we're going to be applying it face down to the canvas itself. For the material used, I am using 24-pound copy paper. Once I select my material, Design Space is going to tell you exactly what you need to do. It is going to tell you which marker you need to place in clamp A, and then you're going to load your mat. So I've already placed my copy paper down on a light grip mat. I am inserting the marker color that Design Space has told me to do. You want to make sure that it clicks when you push your marker down, close your clamp, load it up, and it's going to draw any image that marker color has been chosen for. Then Design Space is going to tell you what color the next marker is. So you're going to remove your first marker. Make sure you put your cap back on it so your markers don't dry out. Then reinsert the second color, close clamp A, and continue to do this until all of your colors have been outlined onto your design. Now save all those colored markers because you're going to be using those to color the image in. I'll remove this from the mat, and then I'm going to take each one of those colors and color in where Cricut has already outlined it for me. Now for larger images like this watering can, I found that it was easier to go on the outline and then make straight lines across, because each line that you make will be printed onto your material and it will show up. I decided to go over the watering can twice to make sure I had everything filled in. Then you just want to take your time and color in each one of those images with the color that the outline has already provided. And it's turning out so pretty. Now it is time to apply it to our canvas. So I have the Cricut mat, I have the Cricut heat press set to 385 degrees. I'm placing cardstock down, my canvas material. I'm going to take a lint roller to go over that to make sure there is no debris that's going to keep my infusible ink from going onto the canvas. Then I'm going to put 2 pieces of butcher paper down, and for 15 seconds I am going to warm up our canvas material at 385. Then carefully remove the butcher paper. Now I have already cut the image down to a smaller size to work with. Once you have that lined up exactly where you want it, take heat-resistant tape to hold it in place and make sure that you don't put it on your image. You don't want that to interfere with your ink. Replace those 2 pieces of butcher paper down. Now I'm doing this to protect my Easy Press from getting any kind of ink on it. We're going to use it at 385 degrees for 60 seconds with light pressure. When it's finished, lift your Easy Press up straight. Remove your butcher paper and let it cool for a little bit. You want to remove it when it's warm but not super hot. Then you can lift your copy paper up, and now your image has been transferred onto your canvas material. To reapply it to the frame, I have flipped the frame over, so this is the back side of the frame. We're going to put the image down, and using a stapler, I'm going to staple each one of those sides. So I like to start on one side, make sure I have it nice and tight and everything is centered up. Once I have the staples in that side, I'll go to the opposite side, pull that canvas material tightly, and then staple that side, and I will continue to do that on the other two sides of the canvas frame. Once I have everything stapled down, I'm going to flip this over, place it on a cutting board, and use a utility knife to carefully go around the outside edge of the frame to remove the extra canvas. Because the canvas is cotton and not polyester, it doesn't give it super vibrant colors, so it really makes it look hand-drawn, and you can use different sizes of canvases to create beautiful variety of wall art for your home. For project number 4, let's head on over to Design Space. I typed in cross with flowers, and it pulls up a ton of images through Cricut Access. When I found this design, I was totally smitten, knew I wanted to use this for my project. So I'm going to add it to my canvas and then resize it. I ended up sizing it to about 8.644 by 6.916. I will be using this on a mat. I made sure to mirror my image because I am using the Infusible ink transfer sheet. So I will select that from the material list and then click continue. And then I will load the Infusible ink transfer sheet onto my standard grip mat. So this has a nice glossy plain side on the back and then the ink part on the top. So you want the ink part on the facing towards you on the mat, and make sure that your fingers are clean and free from oils, because here you can see that I have fingerprints, but I'm putting that down at the bottom so my image is going to be printed out at the top, so it's not going to interfere with this, but just be mindful of that when you're working with these transfer sheets. Now I find that it's easy once you remove it from the mat to roll it back and forth a bit to kind of crack those pieces up before weeding it. This is a lot thicker than vinyl and it has like a paper backing, so you want to be careful as you're weeding it to make sure you remove all of the paper pieces. Because my design has a lot of small intricate parts, I found that it was also helpful to use the tweezers. As I am pulling up those tiny pieces, I can grab it with the tweezers and make sure that it doesn't fall on another part of my design, because anything that ink falls onto is going to transfer onto your fabric. So you want to make sure everything has been removed that doesn't need to be there. So I'll give it a once over and make sure I have weeded everything out and everything looks good. I'm going to be attaching this to a flour sack. I bought 2 of these at Dollar General. I'm going to pull this apart, fold it into thirds, and then take that and fold it in half. So this is how it's going to lay once I put my design on there. Now I have gone ahead and ironed it. I have refolded it back to show you this is where we're going to place the design on the front of the towel. Now before we place the decal on there, I'm going to use some heat-resistant transfer tape and just mark the spots where I want the decal to go, because I've got to unfold this towel because we're only going to be applying the transfer sheet to one layer of the towel. So now that I know exactly where I want to place it, I can unfold everything. I'm going to lay my cardstock onto my mat to protect my mat, get my towel lined up in place, remove those heat-resistant transfer tape. Keep that because you're going to re-need it to apply your design. Make sure you go over it with a lint roller to remove any debris. And once you have everything lined up, you can place that heat-resistant tape back onto the design to hold it in place. Add your butcher paper, and we're going to put the Easy Press on 385 for 60 seconds with light pressure. Pull that Easy Press straight up, remove your butcher paper, and let it cool enough to touch before you remove that transfer tape and peel away that backing. Now see, this is why we put that cardstock down, because that ink would seep through and ruin your mat. So you want to make sure you have something to protect your mat. but this turned out so beautiful. And these transfer sheets give you really vibrant color on cotton. So I love how this one turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. Project number 5, we're using these wood Easter egg ornaments. I'm going to fill those holes in with wood filler, let that set up, and use sandpaper to sand those down nice and smooth before I give them a coat of paint. So I'm using 6 of these, and I want my paint to be a pastel color. So the base for all of my colors will be the white chalk paint. I'm using celery, palmito, lemon yellow, pumpkin orange, cameo pink, and light lavender to really create some pastel colors. But you can color yours whatever color you like. You can paint them, vibrant, pastel, whatever color you choose. I just like pastel colors. I like the lighter colors. So I just use a base of white and add a little bit of color to each one of those. Mix it up really good. I'm going to paint these eggs on both sides. Now I do give the fronts 2 coats, but you can just play around with the colors of the paint. If it doesn't turn out that way you want it to look when they dry, you can always go back over it. Like this one with the orange was a little too dark once I had everything painted. So I mixed up a little bit lighter color and painted that. Then we're going to let those dry. We're going to use some natural wood veneer and maple by Cricut. They come 2 sheets in a pack. I'm going to apply this to a standard grip mat. It recommends a strong grip mat, but I only have a standard one, so I'm going to use some duct tape to place this on each side to hold in place and keep it from moving. So now that I am in Design Space, I'm just going to click Text, type out Easter. I'm using the font Paddington Regular. I'm going to resize it so the height of my letters will be 3 inches, and then the whole grouping will be a total of 10 inches. I am going to ungroup this because that way I can move my letters around once I select Make It, and it's going to go, I'm going to choose on a mat. Now, because I ungrouped it, I can move my letters around to place them so that they won't be where the tape is that I have placed on top of my veneer. That way it's not going to cut through the tape or mess up any of my cutting. Select the material natural wood veneer. You're going to insert your D-point blade. That's in clamp B, so you just remove whatever blade you already have in there. Insert your D-point blade, close that clamp up, and then Design Space will tell you when to load your mat. You'll go ahead and load that. It's going to measure to make sure you have the correct size mat in there. And then it is going to make 4 passes when it cuts. You don't have to do anything. The Cricut's going to do it all for you. Once all of those passes have been made, you can then unload your mat and then remove your lettering from the veneer. Look how crisp and beautiful these turned out. Now, once I remove all of the letters, I'm going to place them onto some wax paper, use some antique wax, and apply 1 coat with a brush, and then take a wet baby wipe to go over the entire front part of this to blend everything in. It's going to bring out that beautiful wood grain in the veneer. I mean, look how gorgeous that is. I'm going to do all of these letters using 2 pieces of scrap wood that I have. These I have cut down to 21 inches each. They measure 1 inch wide and about 1/4 inch thick. If you don't have any scrap wood, the garden stakes from Dollar General would work perfect for this project as well. I'm going to apply 1 coat of that antique wax with a brush all the way around both of these pieces, including the ends, and then I can take a wet wipe and blend everything in. Now, once the antique wax as well as all of the paint has dried, we can assemble this piece together. I have laid my eggs out in the colors that I want them to be. Then I'm going to place the veneer letters right on top the center of each one of those eggs and attach it using hot glue. I just started with the first one, make sure I center that up, and then I used a ruler to place the bottom part of the eggs together so I can make sure each one of those letters are centered on each one of the eggs and everything lines up when we get ready to put it back together. Now that all the letters are glued down, we're going to take those 2 wooden pieces. On the flat side, we're going to be attaching the eggs to the back side of that. So I lined it up to make sure I had the same amount of distance between each of the eggs. Then I'll carefully just pull the egg up, put some hot glue at the bottom part of the egg, and then firmly press that against the back of the wood piece. Hold that in place until that glue cools off, and then I'll do that for each one of the eggs, making sure that I keep the spacing the same distance between each one of them. Once I have all of my eggs glued in place, this is what it's going to look like. It's turning out really pretty. I am loving these colors. So this is how it's going to be looking. Now I'm going to turn it around so the back side of the eggs are facing me. And we're going to attach this piece of wood to the back side. So we're going to sandwich it together. I want to make sure that the wood pieces line up end to end. So I'm just going to add hot glue to the bottom part of each one of those eggs again. Push that back piece of wood up. Make sure the ends stay flush on each side. Press pretty firmly. Let that glue cool off. And this project is finished. This turned out so pretty. Again, I love these colors. I love those pastel colors with this beautiful antique wax. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you enjoyed today's projects and you haven't done so already, I would love for you to click that subscribe button and the notification bell. To all my current subscribers, thank you so much. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Please take care, and I'll see you next time.